when my daughter looked me dead in the eye and said, "We've decided to cut you out of this family." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope that would destroy everything they thought they knew about their comfortable lives. My name is Catherine Reed. I'm 67 years old, and this story still keeps me awake at night. Not from guilt, but from the cold satisfaction of watching perfectly laid plans unfold exactly as intended. That Thanksgiving dinner happened just 2 months ago, but to understand how we got there, I need to take you back 7 months to the day my world shattered, and I learned what my own flesh and blood was truly capable of. It started with Robert's death. My husband of 43 years collapsed while watering his tomato garden on a Tuesday morning in March. One moment he was humming an old Beatles song, the next he was gone. The paramedics said his heart simply stopped, no warning, no chance to say goodbye. The tomatoes kept growing, but everything else died with him. Jennifer, my daughter, and her husband Mark swooped in like concerned vultures during the funeral arrangements. They handled the paperwork I couldn't focus on, hosted relatives at their sprawling suburban home, and made sure I didn't completely fall apart in public. My son Thomas flew in from Portland with his wife and teenage daughter. For those few dark days, we actually felt like a united family again. "Mom, you can't stay in this house alone," Jennifer declared the week after we buried Robert. She was sitting in my kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd done homework while I cooked dinner for 18 years. "It's too big, too isolated. What if something happens to you?" I looked around the space Robert and I had renovated 3 years earlier. The marble countertops, the custom cabinets, the breakfast nook where we'd shared coffee and crossword puzzles every morning. This wasn't just a house, it was the archive of our entire marriage. "This is my home, Jenny. Your father and I built our life here." "I know, Mom, and we're not saying it has to happen tomorrow. But think practically. 5 bedrooms, that huge yard, all the maintenance Dad used to handle. You're 67 years old." She wasn't wrong. Robert had been the fix-it genius, the one who understood the temperamental furnace and knew exactly which breaker controlled what outlets. But I wasn't some helpless widow who needed to be managed by her adult children. "We've already researched some beautiful senior communities," Mark added, sliding a glossy brochure across my table. "Independent living with optional support services. There's one called Maplewood Springs about 15 minutes from our house." Maplewood Springs, where elderly people went to wait for death while pretending to enjoy mandatory social activities and cafeteria meals. But they wore me down with the relentless patience that only loving children possess when they're convinced they know what's best for your life. Over the following month, they scheduled tours, brought me more brochures, and gradually painted a picture of a safer, more manageable future. A future where I'd be close enough for them to check on me, but far enough away that I wouldn't be a daily burden. So I sold the house. The place where Jennifer had taken her first steps, where Thomas had broken his wrist falling off his bike, where Robert and I had danced in the living room on our 25th anniversary. I sold it and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment that smelled like industrial disinfectant and offered active senior living, which apparently meant bingo nights and an exercise room with equipment older than my grandchildren. The apartment wasn't horrible, just empty. Beige walls, beige carpet, beige everything. I'd lived in a house full of memories and personality for over 4 decades, surrounded by furniture Robert had restored and quilts I'd made during long winter evenings. Now I had 1,100 square feet of beige, and a monthly rent payment to show for it. "You'll love it once you get settled," Jennifer assured me, helping me arrange my displaced furniture in spaces it was never designed for. My dining room set, which had hosted countless holiday dinners, looked absurd in the apartment's cramped eating area. The china cabinet that held my grandmother's dishes couldn't fit anywhere at all. We'll keep it in our garage, Mark offered. You can visit it anytime you want. Visit my own China like it was imprisoned. The first few weeks were brutal. I'd wake up expecting to find Robert beside me, then remember where I was and feel the double loss crash over me again. My husband was gone and my home was gone, both within a month of each other. But I'm not the wallowing type. Never have been. Robert used to joke that I could find hope in a hurricane. So I threw myself into making the best of my new reality. I joined the book club, attempted water aerobics, even attended a few social mixers where widows and widowers made awkward small talk over grocery store cake. That's when Jennifer started having her financial troubles. It began innocently enough with a phone call on a Wednesday evening in June. Jennifer's voice was tight with anxiety, which immediately caught my attention because my daughter was usually unflappable. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but we're having a cash flow issue. Mark's commission got delayed and our mortgage payment is due tomorrow. Could you possibly?" Of course I could. What was I saving money for anyway? I had Robert's life insurance payout, the proceeds from selling the house, and his pension benefits. More money than I'd ever seen in my life, actually, just sitting in accounts earning pathetic interest rates. "How much do you need, sweetheart?" "Just enough to cover the mortgage. $2,800. I'll pay you back the second Mark's commission comes through." I transferred the money that same night. Online banking was one of the few modern conveniences I'd embraced wholeheartedly. So quick, so convenient, so easy to help your children when they needed it. The payback never materialized. There was always something else. Mark's commission structure had changed. Jennifer's part-time consulting work lost a major client. Their car needed expensive repairs. 17-year-old Ashley needed money for her senior year activities. I didn't mind, honestly. Family helps family, right? And what else was I going to spend money on? Expensive dinners for one? Cruise ships packed with other lonely seniors? By October, I'd given them over $31,000. Mortgage payments, credit card minimums, Ashley's SAT prep classes, 15-year-old Brandon's football equipment. The family vacation to Hawaii they'd already booked when their finances got tight. I discovered the truth entirely by accident. Ashley had left her TikTok account open on my tablet after showing me videos from her homecoming dance. I wasn't spying, just trying to close the app so I could get back to my ebook when I saw Mark's latest post. It was a video of him and Jennifer at some upscale steakhouse, champagne flutes raised, both of them grinning like lottery winners. The caption read, "Celebrating another record month. When you work smart, you play hard. Living our best life. Record month." When just 3 weeks earlier, Jennifer had called me in tears about how they couldn't afford Brandon's new school laptop. I scrolled through more posts, my coffee growing cold as the truth unfolded in perfectly edited videos. The modest weekend getaway to recharge from financial stress that looked suspiciously like a luxury resort spa. The simple family dinner at a restaurant where I knew entrees cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. The small upgrade to Mark's car that appeared to be a brand new Audi. All posted while I was writing checks for their mortgage. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Robert, how he'd worked overtime for years so we could pay off our house early. How we'd driven the same cars until they literally couldn't run anymore. How we'd saved every penny for retirement, dreaming about the trips we'd take and the time we'd have together. Time we never got because he died 8 months after retiring. The next morning, I called Jennifer. Kept my voice light and casual. "Hi, honey, how are things going financially?" "Oh, same struggles. Mark's commission is late again, and we're behind on Ashley's car insurance." Interesting. According to TikTok, Mark had just had his biggest sales month ever. That's awful, sweetheart. You must be so stressed. I am, Mom. I hate always having to ask for your help, but I honestly don't know what else to do. The lie flowed out of her so smoothly. She'd obviously had plenty of practice. How much do you need this time? Could you manage $900? I know it's a lot, but… Of course. I'll transfer it this afternoon. But I didn't transfer anything. Instead, I made an appointment with Richard Hawthorne, the estate attorney who'd handled Robert's will. Sharp man with a reputation for protecting seniors from exactly the kind of situation I found myself in. His office looked like something from a legal thriller. Dark wood leather chairs, law books that probably cost more than most people's cars. But Richard himself was younger than I'd expected, maybe 50, with intelligent eyes behind expensive glasses. Mrs. Reed, thank you for coming in. How can I help you? I told him everything. The apartment move, the money requests, the TikTok discovery. By the time I finished, his expression had shifted from professional interest to barely controlled rage. Mrs. Reed, what you're describing is called elder financial abuse. Your daughter and son-in-law are exploiting your grief and generosity to fund their lifestyle while lying about their actual financial situation. They're my family, Mr. Hawthorne. Family helps family. Family helps family during genuine emergencies, not to pay for luxury vacations while fabricating financial crises. You've given them $31,000 in 5 months. That's not help. That's being systematically defrauded. The words hit like physical blows because they were true. I'd raised Jennifer to be better than this. I'd taught her about honesty, integrity, hard work. Somewhere along the way, I'd apparently failed completely. What can I do? Richard leaned back in his chair. Several options. First, we document everything. Bank transfers, text messages, social media posts. Second, we cut off their access to your funds. Immediately. Third, if you're willing to go further, we can pursue legal action for recovery of funds obtained under false pretenses. Legal action against my own daughter. The thought made me nauseous. I don't want to send her to prison, Mr. Hawthorne. That's understandable, but you need to protect yourself, Mrs. Reed. This pattern will continue and escalate unless you stop it. People who exploit elderly family members rarely stop voluntarily. Elderly family members. Is that what I was now? We spent the next hour reviewing my options. Richard suggested starting with financial protection, new bank accounts they couldn't access, documentation of their deception, then seeing how they responded when the money well dried up. One more thing, Richard said as I prepared to leave. Do you have other family members who might be involved? Your son, perhaps? I hadn't even considered that possibility. Thomas lived across the country, called regularly, sent thoughtful gifts. He'd never asked for money or mentioned financial problems. I don't think so. Thomas seems to be managing fine on his own. Good. You'll need family allies who aren't compromised by financial interests. These situations often split families along money lines. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done since Robert died. I cooked a real dinner for myself. Pot roast with vegetables the way Robert loved it, using my good china that Jennifer had said was too formal for apartment living. While the roast cooked, I went through 5 months of bank statements, highlighting every transfer to Jennifer and Mark. The actual total was higher than I'd calculated, $33,400. Enough to buy a decent car, enough for a real vacation, not the budget senior cruise Jennifer had suggested I take instead of wasting money helping them. My phone rang during dinner. Jennifer, naturally. Mom, I'm so sorry to bother you, but did you forget about the insurance money for Ashley's car? No, honey, I didn't forget. A pause. Oh, well, could you send it tonight? The payment is due first thing tomorrow. Jennifer, I've been thinking. Maybe you and Mark should look into financial counseling. There are programs that help families manage their budgets more effectively. Another pause, longer this time. Mom, we don't need counseling. We need temporary help until Mark's commission structure stabilizes. It's been 5 months, sweetheart. That doesn't sound very temporary. Are you saying you won't help us? Her voice had developed an edge I'd never heard before. I'm saying I think you need to find a more sustainable solution than asking your widowed mother for money every week. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Fine, Jennifer finally said. I'll figure something else out. But don't blame me when Ashley can't drive to her job because we can't afford insurance. She hung up. Actually hung up on me. I sat there holding the phone, wondering when my daughter had transformed into someone I didn't recognize. The next few weeks were tense. Jennifer called less frequently, and when she did, her voice was cold and distant. She didn't directly ask for money, but she made sure to mention every financial stress they were experiencing. Ashley's college application fees, Brandon's basketball camp, the heating system that might need replacing before winter. Each mention felt like emotional blackmail disguised as casual conversation. Meanwhile, I was busy with Richard building what he called financial firewalls. New bank accounts at a different institution, investment accounts Jennifer had never known about, a safety deposit box for important documents. You're being very smart about this, Richard told me during one of our meetings. Most people in your situation wait until the damage is much more severe before taking action. How much worse could it get? I've seen adult children drain elderly parents' entire life savings. 6-figure losses sometimes. The victims often don't realize what's happening until they're facing eviction or can't afford medical care. That's when he told me about Mrs. Patterson, an 84-year-old woman whose son had forged her signature on a reverse mortgage. About Mr. Chun, whose daughter-in-law had convinced him to add her name to all his accounts, then emptied them before disappearing with her boyfriend. Horror stories that made my situation seem almost manageable. Holiday season is often when these situations reach a breaking point, Richard warned. Families gather, expectations are high, financial stress peaks. Your daughter and son-in-law are probably counting on their usual Christmas windfall from you. Christmas? I hadn't even thought about it. Last year, Robert and I had given Jennifer's family $4,000 to help make the holidays special for the kids. This year, they'd probably expect more, especially since they assumed I had extra money after selling the house. What would you recommend? Set boundaries now before the requests start. Decide what you're willing to give, if anything, and stick to it. Don't let guilt or manipulation change your decision. That night, I made my choice. I would give Ashley and Brandon $300 each for Christmas, directly to them, not through their parents. No money for Jennifer and Mark. No help with holiday expenses or travel costs. I was going to have my first honest Christmas in months. But Jennifer had other plans. The call came on a Sunday night in early November. She was crying, which immediately alarmed me because Jennifer never cried, not even during Robert's funeral. Mom, I need to tell you something, and I need you to promise not to get upset. Every parent knows nothing good follows those words. What's wrong, honey? We've been having serious problems with Mark's company. He's probably going to lose his job. There's been restructuring and his position is being eliminated. My heart sank despite everything I knew. Losing a job before the holidays was genuinely awful news. Oh, Jennifer, I'm so sorry. When will he know for sure? Next week. But Mom, here's the thing. Even if he keeps his job, they're cutting his territory in half. His income is going to drop by at least 40%. That's terrible. Have you started looking at your budget? Figuring out what expenses you can reduce. We've looked at everything, Mom. We're already running pretty lean. Lean. Right. Lean people don't post videos of themselves at $150 per person steakhouses. There's something else, Jennifer continued. Something I probably should have told you months ago. Here it comes, I thought. When we asked for help with the mortgage, it wasn't just a temporary cash flow problem. We've been behind for almost a year. We're in real danger of losing the house. The house. The beautiful colonial with the perfect landscaping and the 3-car garage. The house I'd been helping pay for while thinking I was covering temporary shortfalls. They were going to lose it anyway. Jennifer, how far behind are you? 7 months, maybe 8. But if we can catch up the back payments and demonstrate steady income, the bank said they'd work with us on a modification. 8 months of missed payments while they posted about their blessed life on social media and took me to expensive restaurants with my own money. How much would it take to catch up? Around $28,000. I know it's a huge amount, but Mom, if we lose this house, where will Ashley and Brandon finish school? How will we rebuild our credit? We'd have to rent some apartment in a completely different district. $28,000 on top of the $33,400 I'd already given them. Jennifer, I need some time to think about this. There isn't much time, Mom. The foreclosure notice gives us 3 weeks. 3 weeks to decide whether to throw good money after bad, or let my grandchildren learn what consequences actually look like. I'll call you tomorrow. That night, I did something I hadn't done since Robert's funeral. I cried until I had no tears left. Then I called Richard Hawthorne's emergency line. He answered on the second ring. Mrs. Reed, are you all right? No, I don't think I am. They're about to lose their house, and they want me to bail them out again. How much this time? $28,000. To catch up mortgage payments they've been missing for months while I was helping them make current payments. Richard was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Reed, they've been committing fraud. They took money from you under false pretenses, claiming they needed help with current payments while knowing they were already in foreclosure. Fraud. Such a clinical word for what my daughter had done to me. What happens if I say no? They'll lose the house. They'll have to find rental housing, probably in a different school district. Your grandchildren will have to adjust to a more modest lifestyle. And if I say yes? You'll be out over $60,000 total with no guarantee they won't be back in the same situation 6 months from now. Plus, you'll be enabling a pattern of financial irresponsibility that will only escalate. I knew he was right. I'd known it for weeks. There's something else you should consider, Richard continued. Thanksgiving is next week. Based on what you've told me about your daughter's behavior patterns, I suspect this foreclosure crisis is being timed for maximum emotional impact. They're planning to use the family gathering to pressure you into saying yes. Thanksgiving. The holiday Robert and I had hosted for 15 years before moving the tradition to Jennifer's house. The holiday that was supposed to be about gratitude and family unity. What would you do, Mr. Hawthorne? If it were your daughter, I'd protect myself and let them face the natural consequences of their choices. But I understand that's much easier said than done when it's your family. After I hung up, I sat in my beige apartment looking at the photo on my end table. Robert and me on our 35th anniversary, both laughing at something I couldn't remember. He'd been so proud when we paid off our house early, so careful with money, so determined to build something solid for our retirement. If he were here now, what would he tell me to do? I think I already knew the answer. But I also knew I wasn't quite ready to act on it yet. As it turned out, the decision would be made for me. That's when I decided to hire someone who could give me the full picture of what I was really dealing with. Richard recommended a private investigator named Daniel Brooks, a former police detective who specialized in financial fraud cases. "Mrs. Reed," Daniel said during our first meeting, "I want you to understand that once we start this investigation, there's no going back. Whatever we find, you're going to have to face the complete truth about your daughter and son-in-law's activities. I need to know what I'm really dealing with." "All right then. Give me 2 weeks." Thanksgiving Day arrived cold and gray, which seemed perfect for what I knew would be our final family gathering. I'd made my decision Tuesday night after receiving Daniel's preliminary report. What he'd discovered went far beyond simple lies about money. I arrived at Jennifer's house carrying my famous sweet potato casserole and a manila envelope that would change everything. The envelope contained copies of every bank transfer, every social media post, every lie documented in chronological order, along with something else that would ensure they never tried this again. "Mom!" Jennifer greeted me with unusual enthusiasm. "You look wonderful. That sweater is perfect on you." The compliments were flowing early. Mark appeared with a glass of wine and his biggest smile. "Catherine, so good to see you. How are you settling into apartment life?" "Just fine, thank you." Ashley and Brandon hugged me genuinely, and for a moment I felt terrible about what was coming. But then I remembered that protecting them from their parents' financial recklessness might be the kindest thing I could do. Dinner conversation carefully avoided money topics. They discussed Ashley's college plans, Brandon's basketball season, Mark's work projects. All very normal, very pleasant, very fake. After dessert, Jennifer and Mark exchanged meaningful glances. "Mom," Jennifer began, "we wanted to talk to you about the house situation." "Of course. We know it's an enormous amount of money, but we've spoken with the bank, and if we can bring the mortgage current by Friday, they'll work with us on a modified payment plan." "That sounds promising." Mark leaned forward earnestly. "The thing is, Catherine, this really is our last chance. After this, there are no more options." "I understand. So we were hoping—" Jennifer's voice trailed off. "You were hoping I'd give you $28,000. Loan," Mark corrected quickly. "We'd pay you back with interest." I reached into my purse and pulled out the manila envelope. "Actually, I have something for all of you." Jennifer looked confused but pleased. "Oh, Mom, you didn't need to bring gifts." "Open it." Jennifer opened the envelope and pulled out the stack of documents. Bank statements on top. I watched her face as she realized what she was looking at. "What is this?" "Documentation of every lie you've told me for the past 6 months." The color drained from Mark's face. "Catherine, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. You took $33,400 from me while claiming financial hardship, then spent my money on luxury dinners, spa weekends, and a new car while your mortgage went unpaid." "Mom, you're taking this completely out of context," Jennifer said, but her hands were shaking as she flipped through the papers. "Really? What context makes it acceptable to lie to your widowed mother about needing help with mortgage payments when you're actually 8 months behind?" Ashley looked between her parents with growing horror. "Is this true? Have you been lying to Grandma?" "It's complicated, sweetheart," Mark said weakly. "No, it's not." I stood up from the table. "It's fraud, and it stops now." That's when Jennifer played her final card. "We've decided to cut you out of this family." The words hung in the air like poison gas. Ashley gasped. Brandon stared at his mother in shock. Mark looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. And I laughed. Not a bitter laugh or a sad laugh, but genuine amusement. After months of manipulation, guilt trips, and outright theft, Jennifer thought she could threaten me with abandonment to get her money. "Well," I said, reaching back into the envelope, In that case, you'll definitely want to see the rest of this. I pulled out a second set of documents and placed them on the table. This is a report from the private investigator I hired 3 weeks ago. The silence was absolute. It documents every expensive purchase you've made with my money, cross-referenced with your social media posts and credit card statements. It also reveals some very interesting information about Mark's gambling activities. Mark's face had gone completely white. You hired an investigator. I also filed a complaint with the State Attorney General's Office for Elder Financial Abuse. That's the third set of documents in your pile. Jennifer was frantically shuffling through the papers now, her composure completely shattered. You can't do this to us. We're your family. Family doesn't steal from each other, Jennifer. But since I'm apparently no longer part of this family, I suppose that makes you common criminals instead of ungrateful relatives. Grandma, Ashley said quietly, what's going to happen? I'm going to have a very peaceful Thanksgiving at home with a good book and my own thoughts. To my parents, I mean. That depends on how cooperative they want to be with the authorities. That's when Mark completely lost it. You vindictive old witch. Do you have any idea what you've just done? We'll lose everything. You already lost everything when you decided to treat me like a Mark instead of a mother. The kids will have to change schools. The kids will learn that actions have consequences. Something you clearly never taught them. Jennifer tried one more desperate approach, tears streaming down her face. Mom, please. If you do this, you'll never see your grandchildren again. I looked at Ashley and Brandon, both staring at their parents with expressions of shock and disappointment. Sweetheart, I said to Ashley, you'll be 18 in 8 months. You can decide for yourself whether you want a relationship with a grandmother who refuses to enable your parents' destructive behavior, or parents who would use you as emotional blackmail to steal money. Then I picked up my purse and coat. The investigator's report includes a recommendation that you both seek counseling for your spending addiction and gambling problem. I'd suggest you take that advice seriously. I walked to the door, then turned back one final time. Oh, and Jennifer? Happy Thanksgiving. The phone calls started at 6 a.m. the next morning. First Jennifer sobbing hysterically, then Mark alternating between rage and desperate pleading. Then Jennifer again with a more calculated approach. Mom, I know you're angry, but think about what you're doing to Ashley and Brandon. They don't deserve to be punished for our mistakes. I'd been up since 5 a.m., drinking coffee and watching the sunrise from my small balcony. Amazing how peaceful mornings could be when you weren't dreading the next request for money. You're right, Jennifer. They don't deserve to be punished. But they also don't deserve parents who lie, steal, and use them as human shields when they get caught. We never meant for it to go this far. Which part? The lying part or the stealing part? Or the part where you threatened to cut me out of the family when I wouldn't give you more money? We're not criminals, Mom. We're just people who made some bad decisions when we were desperate. Desperate people don't spend thousands on luxury dinners while claiming they can't afford their children's school expenses, Jennifer. Silence. By noon, I'd received 23 phone calls, 57 text messages, and 4 emails. The content ranged from tearful apologies to legal threats to promises they'd never ask for money again if I just dropped the complaint. I responded to exactly none of them. Richard called at 3 p.m. Mrs. Reed, I've been contacted by an attorney representing your daughter and son-in-law. They'd like to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? Full restitution of the money they took. Plus they want you to sign an agreement not to pursue criminal charges. In return, they'll agree to have no further contact with you. I had to laugh. They think no contact with them is something I'd pay to achieve? Apparently. Their lawyer seems to think family relationships are more important to you than money. They're wrong. At this point, self-respect is more important than either family relationships or money. So you want to proceed with the complaint? I thought about Ashley and Brandon, about Jennifer as a little girl bringing me dandelions she thought were beautiful flowers, about Mark nervously asking for my permission to marry my daughter. Then I thought about Robert working overtime so we could have security in our old age, about the promises we'd made to each other to be careful with money so we'd never be a burden on anyone. Yes, we proceed. That evening, Thomas called from Portland. Mom, Jennifer called me crying. She says you filed some kind of legal complaint against them. Finally, the conversation I'd been dreading. I filed a complaint for elder financial abuse. They took over $30,000 from me under false pretenses. $30,000? Jesus, Mom, I had no idea it was that much. They've been lying to me for months, Thomas, claiming they needed help with current expenses while they were already in foreclosure, using my money for luxury purchases while telling Ashley I couldn't afford her college applications. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. That's really messed up, Mom. I'm sorry you went through that. You're not angry with me for taking legal action against your sister? No, I'm not angry. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. And honestly, I'm pissed at Jennifer for putting you in this position. I started crying then. Relief, gratitude, love for this son who saw the situation clearly and supported me without question. Lisa and I have been talking, Thomas continued. We want you to come visit for Christmas. Stay as long as you want. Megan would love to spend time with her grandmother, and frankly, we think a change of scenery would do you good. For the first time in months, Christmas sounded like something to look forward to. The settlement conference was scheduled for the following Monday in Richard's office. Jennifer and Mark arrived with their attorney, a sharp-dressed woman who specialized in damage control for white-collar crimes. They both looked terrible.